Park Stormwater Retrofit Project, construction kickoff public meeting. A few housekeeping items before we get going. First of all, this presentation is being recorded. Oh, and I should say, please let me know in the chat box if you can hear me. Okay, so there should be a Q&A box and a chat box. The Q&A box doesn't function, but the chat box is functional. So please let me know in there if you can hear me all right. Sound check, 1, 2. Oh, right, very good. I got some notes that you can hear me. Fabulous. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining us today. Again, this is the Fort Greble Stormwater Retrofit Project Construction Kickoff Public Meeting. This presentation is being recorded and it will be posted to the project website after the fact, probably within the next couple of days, along with a copy of the slideshow. Just a reminder, if you're not actively speaking, to please mute your lines. There is a chat box that you can put your questions and comments in, and we will have some time at the end to go over Q&A. So if I don't catch your question immediately, don't fret, we will get to it at the end. Also, just a reminder, if you put anything in the chat box, please send it to everyone versus just me, if possible. So if someone else sees your question and I miss it, make sure we get it that way. All right, so just as an introduction, my name is Cecilia Lane, and I am an environmental protection specialist at the district's Department of Energy and Environment in the Watershed Protection Division, where I work on large-scale upland stormwater retrofits around the district. I am joined today by Peter Norden from DPR, who's our project partner. And I will let him introduce himself. Peter, would you like to say hello to the group?
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Peter Norden, and I am working with Cecilia Lane on this project. I'm the project manager. I'm also trained as a landscape architect for my background, and I'm with the DPR Capital Project Planning and Design Division. So we're also working on the renovations of many of the rec centers in your neighborhood. So keep a look out for me. We'll share my email. It's also on the screen right here, peter.norden@dc.gov. And if you have any questions or comments for DPR, please know that I'm your point of contact on that. Thank you, Stu.
Very good. Thank you, Peter. Okay, I seem to have... We're going to try to go forward. I'm going to move forward. If I seem to be having some issue with WebEx, if you are having any trouble, please just let me know in the box and we'll see if we can troubleshoot it. So I'm also joined with our contractor for this project, Natural Resources Design. We have the principal, Lauren Wheeler, is on the line, as well as Chris Sonne, who is the primary designer for the project. So when we get a little bit more into the nitty-gritty details, if you have specific questions, they will be able to respond. Okay, I am advancing my slides, so hopefully everyone can see that. And if you can't, please let me know immediately. All right, so for tonight's meeting, our agenda, we're going to go over the project area and a little bit of background. What is stormwater? Why do we care? How do we deal with it? What are the existing conditions on the site currently prior to our project? What are the project objectives? Why are we doing these projects anyway? The restoration approach that we're going to utilize in this particular site. Then we'll get into some of the construction details, which I think is what most people in the community are interested in learning about. When will we be working? What times of day? How will this impact you and your use of the site? Our timeline for construction. We'll talk about a few frequently asked questions, and then finally there'll be some time for Q&A. Excuse me. So let's get started with our project location. The Fort Greble Rec Center, as you can see on the screen here, is located towards the bottom of the screen. We will be working in the upper part of the rec center property. So this is really DPR parkland, but it is not near the rec center proper and not too close to the athletic field. It's adjacent to the baseball field. So we're looking at Chesapeake Street Southwest near the intersection with MLK, directly west of Lecky Elementary School. So a little red outline shows you where the focus of our project is, and I apologize, but actually we won't be focusing on the entire hillside, but actually just the parcel directly adjacent to the elementary school. Okay, a little bit of background about stormwater and stormwater management and why we do what we do. So prior to land development, the surface of the earth was covered with lots of vegetation, good thick soils that acted like a sponge, and very few, if any, hardscapes. What that meant was when rain would fall onto the earth's surface, we would have a lot of different ways for that rain to be managed. Some of it was utilized by the existing vegetation through canopy interception. Sometimes that rainfall was returned to the atmosphere by the vegetation in the form of evapotranspiration. Some of the water infiltrated or soaked into those really good soils and was held by the soils and returned through subsurface flow to our streams and rivers, while other water would be infiltrated much deeper and returned to our streams and rivers in different mechanisms. And some of the water would run off of the land, and that's what we call surface runoff. You can see in the schematic on the left that looks at pre-development, and the blue arrows, which indicate the different amounts of those different features. On the right-hand side of the screen, you can see what happened after we developed the land. So what's the first thing we do? We cut down all the vegetation, we grade and compact those really good soils so that they lose their sponge-like quality, and we erect lots of hardscape surfaces that do not allow for water to soak into them. So again, looking at those the relative size of the arrows, you can see that we reduced the amount of water being utilized by the vegetation since we reduced the amount of vegetation and increased the amount of stormwater coming off the surface. So again, looking at those two arrows, you can see how the one on the right after development is a lot larger. So what? This is the so what factor. Why do we care that we have more stormwater pollution, more stormwater runoff? In the business, we like to say that the problem of stormwater is that it is hot, fast, and dirty. Anybody who's seen a parking lot in the summertime can see the heat coming off the parking lot. When a storm comes through and drops a bunch of rain on that parking lot, it picks up that additional temperature, or what we call thermal pollution. And the water is returned to our streams very quickly and very hot, which is not good for our aquatic friends. The water is fast, it's coming off the land. Stormwater is returned to our streams and rivers through outfalls. What that means is in the upper right-hand part of your screen, you should be able to see these pipes that empty into our streams. Those outfalls are typically placed at the same level as the stream bed. So in the picture on the left with my colleague, you can see that the outfall that's returning the stormwater is a good 10 feet over the stream bed. Now, when that happens, what happens with that is those erosive forces will cause more sediment from the stream banks to go downstream. So again, hot, fast, and dirty. So we want to, and you can actually see in the picture on the right, the water coming out of the outfall that's very murky with all the sediment that it's carrying. And then finally, dirty. Anything that is on the land will be picked up by stormwater runoff because there is no treatment to this water before it gets back into the streams and rivers. So that's things like heavy metals, oils, grease, dog waste, trash, as you can see in the lower right hand picture. All of this stuff comes into the streams and rivers from stormwater runoff. Oftentimes we like to say that stormwater is really a problem of imperviousness. But as we are seeing more and more in the field, that even compacted open space or pervious land can also contribute to stormwater runoff volumes. If we think about stormwater being a function of imperviousness, let's take a look at that for a moment. We know that in the district, our total area is 68.3 square miles. And of that, 61.3 is land area, the rest being rivers and streams. The imperviousness is approximately 43% of that land area, which is a large number. And this means that in a single 1.2-inch storm event, we are producing 525 million gallons of stormwater runoff. Again, that's one storm event, and that's the amount of runoff that we're trying to capture and deal with. The 1.2-inch storm event is an important one because that's the majority of the storms in the district are 1.2 inches or less on an annual basis. So again, 1.2 inches will generate 525 million gallons of stormwater runoff, but that's just one storm. That's not even considering all the other storm events that are happening in the year. So that's really the issue that we're trying to deal with. I like to stop at this moment and just point out that there are two different sewer sheds in the District of Columbia. There's what we call the combined sewer shed, which is in the middle part of the district. That's the area in white. That's where all the water is, in theory, going to the wastewater treatment plant. However, when we have larger storm events, that's not always the case. That's the area where DC Water is building their very large tunnel system to capture that storm water. DOEE, however, works in the other 2/3 of the district, or the MS4 area, where there are no stormwater management controls that are filtering the water prior to it getting back into the stream. So if we go back to that picture a few slides back where we saw the water coming out of the outfall, out of the pipe into the stream, that means water is landing on the ground, it goes into a drain, it goes into a pipe, and it goes straight into our streams and rivers without any treatment in between. So that's where DOE focuses our efforts. Okay, so let's get into some of the existing conditions for this particular site. As we said, this is at the Fort Greble Rec Center. However, we're really focusing our efforts in that northern portion along Chesapeake Street Southwest and next to Leckie Elementary School. There's some photos of the existing conditions. You can see this is a relatively underutilized piece of land. I think it was recently used for access to do renovations to the elementary school. And maybe there are folks who stand outside of the fence who watch a baseball game once in a while, but otherwise this is not a programmed portion of the park site. Currently, stormwater is drained from the athletic field towards Chesapeake Street Southwest, going north. There are some standing water issues on the Leckie Elementary School, so we were able to include those in this project to address that issue for the school. Because of the open space and the adjacent use of both by the students at the school and folks in the parkland, this provides a good opportunity for ecological restoration while developing a community amenity. So what are our objectives with this project? What are we hoping to do? We want to treat as much stormwater as possible through these projects in the most cost-effective way, with the budget that we have. Because of the funding source for this particular project, I can only work on district land. We want to make sure that we have minimal impacts to the community. And as I mentioned, whenever possible, develop a community amenity. And then, of course, provide educational opportunities around stormwater management and ecological restoration. All right, let's take a look at the approach that we're going to use at this particular site. So just very briefly, how do we manage stormwater? How do we clean it up, slow it down, and cool it off before it gets to our streams and rivers? Most stormwater management practices behave in the same way. They work to mimic the natural processes that existed prior to land development. So same idea, we want to add vegetation, allow that vegetation to work its magic, improve the soils so that the water can soak in and slowly return to our streams and rivers. So again, the saying is slow it down, spread it out, and soak it in. One of the most common ways to do this in the district is a technique called bioretention. And we'll go over how the bioretention works in just a moment. On the left-hand side of your screen, you can see an example of a bioretention application in a more suburban environment. So you've got your building on the left-hand side of the photo, managed turf area in between, and a parking lot on the right. This bioretention captures the stormwater coming off of that parking lot, treats it before returning it to the surrounding streams and rivers. The photo on the right is the picture of a practice in DC, in NOMA, in front of our offices in NOMA. And again, this bioretention functions a very similar way. It's capturing the stormwater coming off of First Street and bringing it into the bioretention where it has the opportunity to pond and then slowly filter through the engineered filter media. And I'm going to show you what that looks like next. How bioretention works. Water will, so first of all, I should say that these projects are a depression, as we saw in that last picture. They are below grade. If I can. So water will come in through this into the system where it will pond temporarily, and then it will slowly filter through the engineered filter media, like I mentioned a moment ago. The ponding will draw down quicker than that in the filter media. Just so the filter media is 85% sand, so it has really good infiltration and water moves through it pretty quickly. But it's there long enough to allow for the removal of some of those pollutants as well as reduction of overall stormwater volumes. Depending on the technique or the design that's utilized, water can either infiltrate into the existing surrounding soils or it'll go out through a perforated under drain pipe that is tied back into the storm sewer system. And that's how the bioretention functions. So that is the technique we're utilizing at this particular site. Here it's called a dry swale, but it's just a different term for the same kind of practice. You can see from the schematic, again, on the upper part is Chesapeake Street. On the right-hand side here, we've got Lecky Elementary School. And then over here, we've got the existing ball field. So we are capturing stormwater from a little bit from the school property and then just from the surrounding area, putting it into the bioretention, in two bioretentions, and where it's daylighted or returned to the hillside. Again, as I mentioned, these systems are vegetated systems. The vegetation is actually responsible for doing a lot of the heavy lifting with this, with these practices. They are called bioretention for a reason. And so we want to make sure that when we are planting these practices that we're utilizing native vegetation. We're utilizing vegetation that can endure both being inundated or being flooded with water during a storm event. And then again, since we are using really sandy soils, we want to make sure the vegetation can handle drier conditions. In addition, I believe it was the vision of the contractor who won this contract to create sort of a reforestation of the area, if you will, to better connect the outdoor classroom that is directly to the south of the site and provide a learning opportunity for the children who use this area. Lauren, is there anything else you would like to say about the vegetation while we're on this slide?
No, I think that it might be noted that some of the vegetation will provide a wildlife habitat and will have berries on it that are edible for both wildlife and children if they so please. And there is a path designed in this design as well, which enable folks to walk around the bioretention areas so that the students from Lecky or community members can learn more about how bioretention cells work.
Fabulous, thank you. That's a great point. I forgot to mention the importance of our pollinator friends and how utilizing native vegetation can help promote pollinators in the district. Peter, did you have something you wanted to chime in with?
Yeah, I was going to add to Lauren's point that what might be really interesting for the school children is that we're planting I think it's the only native real fruit-bearing tree in the district. This is the pawpaw, and so that's a fun one. So I just thought that would be a fun fact for everybody to know.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. Just a little bit more details about those planting plans. It just sort of shows, and if you're interested, I will say that everything is on the project website, which I can also share in the chat box, but our fully permitted design plans, as well as the design report, and past presentations from previous public meetings. But we wanted to give a little bit more detail regarding the planting because we find that that is a topic that a lot of the members of the community tend to be interested in. So let's get into the project timeline next. Okay, so this project was contracted in May of last year. We have had some delays due to the pandemic, but I'm sure everyone has. From May to August of last year, we did field assessments, investigations, looking at how water runs across the land, looking at what the soils are doing, looking at what the existing trees, where the existing trees are, so on and so forth. Then between August and January of this past year, we did design develop. As I mentioned, there was some delay with this as a result of the pandemic. So we had our initial concept design meeting in September of 2019, our semifinal design meeting in December of last year, and now here we are having our final design or construction kickoff public meeting. We estimate construction take about 6 weeks to complete, but that's a conservative estimate. I will say that with any construction project, that the timeline is a function of how much rain we get, as well as any underground issues that we happen upon. Although we don't expect to have any underground unknowns for this particular site. There is some post-construction maintenance included in this project under the existing contract. So the firm doing the design and construction will be helping with the maintenance for a while. All right, now let's see some construction details so you can see what this looks like. So just some interesting things to keep in mind. All work will occur during the week, Mondays through Friday. Work hours are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can sometimes see folks queuing up before 8 a.m., but no heavy equipment will be turned on until 8 a.m. If we run into a time situation, we may request DPR in the community that we are able to work on the Saturdays or start earlier, but we would give advance notice for that. The kind of vehicles that you can expect to see on the site are listed here: 1 skid steer loader, 1 track excavator, a stake body truck, and 1 crew pickup truck. And Lauren, please jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the majority of the equipment will be stored on the site proper. However, the crew pickup truck may be parked on the roadway. Is that right?
That's correct. We're probably going also have, you can see in the image that there's an excavator there with a dump truck. So when we're reusing a lot of the soil on site, but we will be excavating some soils off site. So there'll be a dump truck that will on occasion come in also to take soils out.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so my contact information is provided on the screen as well. If you have any questions or concerns about the project throughout the construction, please feel free to reach out to me directly, either by email or by phone. All right, this schematic shows you what the construction zone will look like during construction. So you can see the area in the middle that's in yellow is the construction zone that will have security fencing around it. There will be no public access through that area while we are working. On the left-hand side where there's a big orange rectangle, that's where equipment will be stored as well. Again, no public access to that area. And then we do have a stabilized construction entrance in order to bring our equipment in. That's highlighted in green on this schematic. There will not be any pedestrian access through this area over the course of the project. At the same time, this area does not, there are plenty of opportunities to get around without cutting through. So that won't be too much of a inconvenience. Okay, so some frequently asked questions that we get when having these meetings. How do we find our projects? Enthusiastic landowners is the number one. So DOEE doesn't own any land. We don't own any land as an agency. So we need to work with our sister agencies to find opportunities for stormwater management and ecological restoration around the district. That's both our sister agencies in the district, but also our federal partners. We love working with DPR. They're great. They're a great partner, as well as they have their own sustainability objectives in their comprehensive plans as they're moving forward. Sometimes our funding sources dictate where we can and or cannot work. As I mentioned earlier, with this particular project, the funding source requires that we work only on district land. Sorry. But in other situations, sometimes we're able to find funding for federal work. Again, impervious cover. As I mentioned earlier, when we think of stormwater, we think of it as being a problem of imperviousness. And while that is mostly true, you know, there's a little bit of contribution from compacted turf area in the district. We do target our efforts on large areas of untreated impervious cover. Much of the stormwater management that goes in the ground in the district is driven by regulations, and new development or development projects trigger those. We will find large areas that have no plans for future renovation anytime soon, and those are really great opportunities for us to come in and provide stormwater management on the site. And then more impactful locations. If this parking lot is directly adjacent to a stream, as I said, when the stormwater hits, when the rainfall hits that parking lot and generates stormwater runoff and it travels across the parking lot, it is picking up all of the pollutants that are on that parking lot and taking it with the water into the stream. So again, if we have a parking lot directly adjacent to the stream, we're going to want to try to capture and manage the stormwater coming off of that site. That's going to have a larger impact on our aquatic habitat. A lot of times when we're having these meetings, people say, okay, I get it. Stormwater is a function of development. Well, I live in a house, I have a parcel, what can I do? And that's a great question. The district DOE runs a program called Riversmart Homes, and you can sign up at the link on the website right now. I'm sorry, on your screen right now. What is the Riversmart Homes program? Well, first of all, an auditor, a stormwater auditor, will be dispatched to your property, and they will walk around your property and do a review of how stormwater is moving across the site. They will also identify possible opportunities for you to capture and slow down and manage that stormwater on your site. Once you decide on whether or not you'd like to move forward with that and which one you would like to do, then you have an opportunity to select whether or not you'll have a rain garden, permeable pavers, rain barrels, tree planting, and or bayscaping, which is the conversion of turf land into vegetation that has a better water quality benefit and a better habitat benefit. And those practices are installed as free for you. So again, if you're interested in that program and interested in more, please go ahead and sign up at the link provided. And with that, that is all I have to share with the group regarding this particular project. But we do have plenty of time, and I am happy to answer any questions that you may have about this project. Oh, Cornelia Harris, one of our participants, says that she has participated in the Riversmart program, and that's great news. Yes, let's go ahead. I'm going to let you. Can you unmute yourself, or if you can unmute, go right ahead. Otherwise, I will do that for you. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to unmute you, Cornelia.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Thank you for attending our meeting.
Yes. Thank you for inviting me.
Did you have some questions about the project?
I do, but I think my questions, well, let me introduce myself again. I am Cornelia Harris. I work with the community garden at the Patricia Robert Harris Urban Food Hub. I also am the recording secretary for the Bellevue Neighborhood Civic Association. I'm just very interested because I was part of the National Green Infrastructure Certification Program.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I am part of their 9th cohort that I completed the exam on July 31st, and I'm happy to say that I successfully completed it. It was a little different because I guess from previous the previous programs, because we did everything online. But I was just interested in wanting to see this project in action, if it's possible for me to be an observer or an intern or anything that can allow me to be at the site and watch this process happen.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great comment. The one thing I will say is that this is an active construction site. So in order to gain access, you need to have construction PPE. Beyond that, like I said, there is fencing around the site. So you're welcome to be on the property outside of the fencing, but you just want to make sure that you're considering your safety first and foremost.
Okay, well, I have all of the PPE. Is it a way that I could speak with them and they could allow me to be an observer that would be out of their way and know they, in some type of way? I'll sign any types of waivers.
Cornelia, this is Lauren Wheeler. I'm the owner of the contracting company, and I did already email you because Cecilia shared with me your email address. So we can certainly have a conversation about this. One of the things that I want to be aware of is that, as Cecilia said, yes, you would need to have like a hard hat and steel toe boots and safety vests and safety goggles to come onto the site. And I would be more than happy to personally give you a tour of the site, at various intervals during the site. The one thing that I am reluctant to do is when we have a lot of heavy machinery moving around, I am reluctant about having non-employees on site just because of my insurance liability. But why don't you just reach out to me? I sent you an email and we can discuss that specifically in your case.
I greatly appreciate it because I've learned this and I just want to see it and get more knowledge about it.
Yeah, seeing it in action is the best part.
Yeah. So when I heard Cecilia at the ANC meeting, I think you also came to one of the Bellevue neighborhood meetings early, maybe in 2019. But I thought I heard about it earlier. But in any event, I I just would appreciate it so much. If I would stay as much out of the way, but I would be there just to see this from the beginning to the end. If it's at all possible, I would very much appreciate it. Anytime you want me away or off the ground and just observing off the ground, I will follow all of your rules and regulations.
Well, this is exciting. It's wonderful to have more stormwater. I like to say stormwater nerds for myself, but stormwater enthusiasts in our field, and particularly at the public level. I think that is, in order for us to get more of these practices built, we really need to get community buy-in. So it's great that you are enthusiastic about this project.
Okay, thank you for.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. For even the email and for agreeing to work or allow me to be a silent observer. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Absolutely. Cecilia, would it be all right if I talk a little bit about what's happening in terms of what the community can expect in terms of when we'll start setting things up?
Sure, absolutely. Go right ahead.
So we anticipate starting to put up security fencing possibly as soon as the end of next week, if not definitely the beginning of the following week. And then we'll be delivering materials to the site that we'll be using on the site after we put up the security fencing. We have a wonderful subcontractor that will be there. Chris Sone, who's on the call right now, is our civil engineer and is the primary designer for this site. And we, as was listed before, we expect the work we really hope that everything happens within 4 weeks, understanding that we'll be going into a month that has a holiday in it. And there will be occasions where we'll get a lot of rain where we won't be working in the rainy conditions. So that's kind of like the game plan. We're expecting the job to take 4 weeks, but we have in our schedule 6 weeks to have it pretty much completed after all the excavation and groundwork and site work is done. And we've tied into all the critical infrastructure aspects. We'll then come in and do the plantings. So that will be a lot of fun. And then once we've done that, we'll decommission the site by be immobilizing the site, which will be taking down the security fencing and opening the site up to the public. So that we anticipate happening about mid-December, depending on how the weather goes.
Very good. Thank you, Lauren. All right. Well, do we have any other questions about the project or about the overall site and access? If we do, feel free to put them in the chat box. One thing I didn't mention earlier, or just kind of glossed over it, was the educational opportunities. We will be developing educational signage for this particular site and this practice that discusses what it's doing, why it's there, that it's an intentional practice, and just providing a little bit more information to the district residents and citizens so they understand the purpose of these practices. All right. Well, again, I'd like to thank you for attending tonight's meeting. It looks like we don't have any more questions, so I'm going to wrap things up. Just a reminder, I did record the meeting. I will post both the recording and a copy of the slides to the project website. And let me see if I can't put that in the chat box for you right now. Let me just hold on one moment. Well, unfortunately, it looks like I'm having so much WebEx trouble that I don't know that I'm going to be able to share that with you all. Oh, here we go. There you go. Here's the project website. Yeah, Cornelia, let's get together. Let's touch base either tomorrow or Friday morning. I think that's a great idea to share this information with the Bellevue Neighborhood Civic Association. I believe an ANC commissioner earlier on put me in touch with someone over there, but we were unable to make their meeting. So it would be really great to give an update of the project and provide a little bit of a timeline to those folks. And again, I will aim to have the video posted prior to that meeting. And as soon as that has been done, I can share that link with you. Again, using the project website for either a copy of this meeting or to download the fully permitted design plans and or the design report. And that should give you a bit more detail on the project. Otherwise, pressing all sorts of buttons now. I would just like to say thanks again to everyone for attending tonight's meeting and really appreciate you participating. We're looking forward to having a great project. Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming.